On a sunny morning in Sarajevo, the unthinkable happened. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, and his wife Sophie were assassinated. The assassin, Gavrilo Princip, was a Serbian nationalist. This single event, as shocking as it was, set off a chain reaction that plunged Europe into the abyss of World War I. The assassination sent shockwaves through Europe. Austria-Hungary, outraged and grieving, blamed Serbia for the act. The Austro-Hungarian government saw an opportunity to crush Serbian nationalism and issued an ultimatum with deliberately unacceptable terms. Serbia, fearful of an attack, turned to its ally, Russia, for support. Russia, a powerful Slavic nation, had a vested interest in protecting Serbia from Austro-Hungarian aggression. Meanwhile, Germany pledged its unwavering support to Austria-Hungary. The assassination of Franz Ferdinand was not just a tragedy, it was a spark in a powder keg. Europe in 1914 was a network of alliances fueled by nationalism and imperial ambitions. The assassination had set in motion a series of events that would lead to a global conflict. Europe on the eve of World War I was a tinderbox of political tensions and alliances. The great powers, Germany, Austria-Hungary, Russia, France and Great Britain, were entangled in a complex web of treaties and agreements. These alliances, meant to deter aggression, ultimately served to escalate the crisis. Germany and Austria-Hungary had formed the Dual Alliance in 1879, primarily to counter Russian influence in the Balkans. This alliance emboldened Austria-Hungary to take a hard line against Serbia. On the other side, France and Russia had formed an alliance in 1894, driven by their shared fear of German power. Great Britain's position was more complex. While not formally allied with France and Russia, Britain was bound by the Entente Cordiale with France and had agreements to protect Belgian neutrality. When Germany violated Belgian neutrality as part of its war plan, Britain felt compelled to intervene. Within a month of Franz Ferdinand's assassination, the major powers of Europe were at war. What began as a regional conflict in the Balkans had exploded into a continental crisis. The alliances that were supposed to prevent war had instead drawn the great powers into a conflict that none of them had anticipated or desired. The war that ensued was unlike any the world had ever seen. Millions of soldiers were mobilized and new technologies of warfare emerged, transforming the battlefields into landscapes of unimaginable brutality. Trench warfare became the defining feature of the Western Front, with armies facing each other across a desolate no-man's land. Machine guns, artillery and poison gas turned the trenches into killing fields. Soldiers on both sides endured unimaginable horrors. Relentless bombardments, the ever-present threat of snipers, and the psychological strain of prolonged combat. The initial enthusiasm for the war quickly faded as the conflict dragged on and casualties mounted. The war had a profound impact on civilian populations as well. Entire countries were mobilized for war production, and food shortages and economic hardship became commonplace. The scale of the fighting was unprecedented. Battles like the Somme and Verdun resulted in hundreds of thousands of casualties for minimal territorial gains. Yet the war continued, driven by a complex mix of national pride, political ambition, and a refusal to accept defeat. The First World War ended in 1918 with the defeat of the Central Powers. The war had a profound and lasting impact on the world. Millions had perished, and empires had crumbled. The Treaty of Versailles, intended to ensure a lasting peace, instead sowed the seeds of future conflict. The war led to the redrawing of the map of Europe, with the collapse of the Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman and Russian empires. New nations emerged, but the peace settlement left many unresolved grievances. Germany, blamed for the war, was burdened with heavy reparations and territorial losses, creating resentment that would fuel the rise of extremism in the years to come. The First World War was a watershed moment in history. It marked the end of an era and the beginning of a new world order. The war's legacy would continue to shape international relations for decades to come, ultimately contributing to the outbreak of World War II just 2 decades later.